Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world today. As you know, my name is Maryam Bay, and I am the host of television. And as I always say, I bring on the best guests. So today I have another special best guest. And this is going to be a very interesting show, because we're going to be talking about something that is so key, and that's relationships. Okay?
Definitely.
And so before we get into that discussion, I'm going to have the brother to introduce himself.
So how's everyone doing? My name is Struggle E. Stylez. I am what I would consider a connection coach, dealing with self-connection first and then outer connection later.
Okay, what does that mean?
So when I say connection, I think everything stems from self, right? So once you can get in tune with who you are and understand who you are, then of course you can vibrate with other people. So that way when you go into other people, you will always be within your true self. I think a lot of times we are interacting with people and what I call like the facade or your representative versus just being who you truly are.
Right,
Yes.
okay. So just let me say this, because we met over a year ago.
Yes.
Right? And the very first time that I met you, I said to you, "You're so smart."
Yeah.
Because all the conversations that we were having, it took me back to the day in the early 80s, you
Yes.
know, and how I grew up and everything. And you were talking about those experiences.
Yes.
So I said, you should probably have been a teacher or something, but
Right.
you are.
Yes.
You are a teacher.
Yes.
So now this book, The Simplicity of the Complex Man, I have to tell you, this is a great book. And I'm not saying this because I know this brother. I'm saying this because I read it, and when I read it, I was going through something myself. And when I read this, I said, oh my God. I read this in a day.
Yes.
Because it was so interesting, and it was so to the point about relationships. And one of the things that I liked about it was when you said the importance of compatibility.
Yes.
And then you also talk about it here, like sometimes you just gotta walk away.
Yes.
But what I loved about it is that this is a book for women. This is a book for us to talk. And more importantly, what he says in here is like, we have to love ourselves and value ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so when we do that, then hopefully we'll find someone who is going to value us. And then the other thing is that what I liked about it is that you have like worksheets in here. And see, I did the worksheets and
Nice.
everything. I mean, you could tell I have read this book, okay?
Yes.
And sometimes I refer to it too, regarding relationships and everything. So, and now tell me, why did you write this book? Why did you call it The Simplicity of the Complex Man? And what gave you the inspiration to write a book like this for women?
So when Ms. Bay was talking earlier about us meeting and taking her back to the 80s, pretty much referencing some of the same artists that we came up with. 80s was a heavy atmosphere of what I call like the pro-us movement, black folk and understanding your culture, your identity, who you are. And I started to realize that there were so many issues that were going on within the black community, especially when it came to relationships. So with studying those people, Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben,
Yes.
Dr. Wilson.
And all of them I know or knew.
Yes. So I wanted to try to look from different aspects, from a psychological aspect, from a cultural aspect. What were the reasons that black couples weren't staying together? So that was the path that started the journey. As I started to venture into the journey, I was interviewing people from multiple backgrounds, multiple cultures. And I started to realize that men all behaved in a certain way and women all behaved in a certain way. And I think that especially nowadays, we stem away from our natural who we are, right? Man, woman, and together we make us. Okay. And the more I started to interview people from various backgrounds and cultures, I started to realize like a lot of these challenges are systemic. And I think one of the biggest things I realized is that people just weren't compatible. Like, I didn't understand how someone can be together for years and years and years, and then you fall into this routine, you fall into a program, right? And I think COVID taught us that. A lot of couples broke up.
Oh, sure
right?
did.
Because
Yeah.
you fell into a pattern where I'm okay with you for 3 hours. Now I have to be with you for 10 hours? You know, like, I don't like you that much. So it went more into a pattern of just normalcy versus being in love. And I always wanted an empowered relationship that I am in love. When I see the person I'm with, I want to grab them, hug them, make love to them. I want to talk to them. I want to have that connection. And I realized that connection just wasn't happening throughout. So that started the path of that journey. And once I found out about the compatibility factor, that was one of the main core things that I stuck on. And it led to me discovering those things. I also read a book a while ago by Tony Robbins. You know, I'm quite sure you guys know.
Yes.
That's my dude. So one day I was watching an infomercial at night, seeing this guy come on, you know, white guy, big teeth, big head, and he's talking about, I'm like, yo, who is this guy, right? So I kept seeing him. So a friend of mine had invited me to an art gallery. It was a black art gallery, used to be in South Orange. And she said, listen, Struggle, you have to read this book. You have to read this book. And I got the book and I'm like, let me just read it and see what's up. So I'm reading the book and I couldn't put it down, right? Okay. And as I closed the book, the pages flapped to the back and here was this guy, Tony Robbins. So it was like that, it was like, wow. And what I learned in that book was something that I always learned from following the ancestors.
Yes.
But this book just spoke to me in a way where it was simple and I understood it and it connected. And that went back to me. I am responsible for me. I'm responsible for my happiness. I'm responsible for everything that goes on. I'm responsible for how I respond. So that started that catalyst. And the name of the book, by the way, was Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins. Right?
Okay. Can I just say something? Because when you said that I am responsible for my happiness.
Yes.
And that's true, because I used to say a lot of times, because you know I work with brothers and sisters in the prison system, right? Yes. And people will make statements like, you know, they're supposed to make me happy.
Right.
And then I said, but if you're not happy with yourself, then how would you expect someone else to make you happy? Or if you don't like your own company, how would you expect someone to like you? You know, so that's what you remind me of.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the unlimited power led me down that path. And I started to realize that if we are not in control, okay with self, and understand self, then we're not going to be able to share our experience with someone else. Right. And I realized also, ever since you go to school, you are taught to be normal, follow a path, right? And I've always loved being weird. I always loved being on the outside, right? And when you follow that path of normalcy, they dictate what's happiness to you.
Because they're programming you.
Right. And when you are outside of that program, when you fall outside that, you start to think something is wrong with you, right? Because they tell you if you have the education, right? You have the house, you got the husband or the wife, you got the kids, you got the big car, and you got money.
Right.
Now you're happy. So people will follow this procedure and realize I'm still not happy. Right. So immediately they start thinking something is wrong with what? Them. Right? So now that leads down a whole different path, the whole journey. I'm supposed to be happy, why am I so I'm supposed to be happy, I'm not happy. So maybe it's you, as my spouse is not making me happy, right? And it opens up this catalyst for everything else.
So I'm putting that responsibility on you.
Absolutely. Yes.
Instead of me putting that responsibility on me.
Yes. And when it came back to simplicity, it goes back to my martial arts understanding. So I've been doing martial arts pretty much all my life.
Yes.
Right? And I realized when we first started doing martial arts, it was simple because I didn't know what I was doing, right? As I started to learn it, it became complex. Right. As I started to master it, it became simple again.
Right.
So I realized that we complicate simplicity. Everything is simple. 1 + 1 = 2. And then if you continue going along that line, you get into trigonometry, geometry, everything else, but you go back to that simple construct, 1 + 1 = 2. So how can we make something complex simple, right? Right. So the title of The Simplicity of the Complex Man, when I hear women talk, they have this complex description and understanding of what a man is. In actuality, we're simple, right? That led me to the understanding that we are different. We're different. Yeah. This is my belief, by the way, if anybody, gets on me. Right. I believe women are here. Women are the intellectual intelligence of the universe, right?
You hear that, ladies?
Men are as well, but I believe men are more instinctual. So I still believe we are closer to our animal state, where the woman has always been on that higher vibration. So I always ask women, like, why do you want to come down here? Like, why do you want to match who I am and what I am, right?
Right.
So a lot of times when women are speaking and talking, they're speaking on such a high intellectual level that it's not simple. So how do we develop not a communication, but a communication of understanding? Because you hear that a lot of times. You ask people, what's the key to relationship? Communication. No, communication. Communication is the key.
Yeah.
But if you're speaking Spanish and I don't understand Spanish, we're communicating. I don't understand what you're saying.
Right.
So it has to be more than just communication. It has to be communication with understanding. So how do we simplify that? So in the book, I spoke a lot about first learning you.
Yes.
Who are you? What do you want? What do you like? What do you love? What are some of your dislikes? What are some of your challenges? What are your fears? What are some of your insecurities? Because if you don't know these things, they will always come back to haunt you and attack you.
Well, that's true. And you know, one of the things that I like what you said that you said to assume or not to assume.
Yes.
The answer is never.
Correct.
So, then you also talked about no negotiation.
Yes. So let's speak from the aspect of assumption, right? You're home, chilling, right? You miss your man, you love him. Your man walks right by you and say absolutely nothing to you. What's the assumption of most women?
Well, I want to know what's the matter with you.
And most women think, oh, you don't love me enough, you don't got time for me, you don't got this. Automatically, the assumption is it is me, right? I'd rather just ask. Because if you assume, you are never sure. So I'd rather just ask. Once you ask, now you have your answer. Now you can move strategically from that aspect.
If he's being honest,
assuming.
if he's being honest with the answer.
So let's go back to a position of honesty. This goes back to knowing who you are. If I know who I am, once I get with a potential love interest, I'm going to know who I am enough to know them as well. Whatever they tell me is what I believe. That's it. I don't have time to decipher whether or not somebody's lying, whether or not somebody's doing this. Now, jumping a little fast forward, right? If a man walks in and says nothing, right? In that moment, the worst thing a woman can do, remember, she's here, right? She's intellectual, she loves. What's wrong with you? Nothing. But what's wrong? Nothing. Oh my God, what you mad at me for? Right? So now all of a sudden it becomes an issue when it's not an issue.
Right.
Now, knowing men, when a man walks in and he doesn't want to talk, he just got beat up by the world, etc. This is his house. This is his area of peace. When he walks in, give him peace. And when he's ready to talk, that's when he'll talk. That's it. Something that simple. Now, a lot of times what happens is women take that aspect of, but why can't you talk to me? I'm your wife. I should know everything, right? And when you think about men a lot of time, if men are going through something, especially if they can't provide and protect, they don't want to always discuss things because that makes them feel inferior. Makes them feel less than a man. So in that aspect, I don't want to talk. And when you push me to talk, anytime you feel insecure or upset about something, the first emotion you're going to display is what? Anger.
Right.
Now you got these heads bumping, right? And this whole thing exploded versus just understanding that's the man, he needs a space for a second, I'm gonna let him have it. That's it. And you just sit there and just support until he's ready to come out and talk.
And then in addition to the anger, what happens is that you start accusing each other.
Yes.
You know, it expands into that.
Yes, yes. So again, it goes back to this simple thing that is now made into this complex structure, which didn't have to grow into that structure. Now, when we talk about compatible, right? Non-negotiating, non-negotiable, right?
Right.
If I know that I want a man who, every time he walks through that door, right, he's gonna hug me, kiss me, love me, kiss my feet, give me roses, give me flowers. The moment I'm with somebody I know and they don't do that, then why would you stay? It's just not who they are.
Oh, so you're saying if you want a man like that?
In any aspect, This goes back to knowing who you are. If I know that these are certain things I want, and in the book we call these negotiables and non-negotiables.
Yeah, that's what I said,
Right.
the non-negotiable.
So I have a non-negotiable. Any woman who's with me, she's going to bring me my plate. I hear everybody like, so when you hear things like this right now, like people get insane because these are trigger words, but what's the trigger word? Any place you look in nature, the female serves the male. That's anywhere in nature. So we're going back to nature. Any woman that I'm with is not going to be taking out the garbage. She's not going to be grabbing luggage, going down the stairs. Those are my jobs. So I'm big into gender roles. These are my non-negotiables. When you have non-negotiables, don't negotiate those. When you start to negotiate your non-negotiables, now you're not being true to who you are. And eventually, what's going to happen in your relationship? If I know for a fact, I love riding motorcycles.
Right.
I love it. If I get with a woman, we have kids, and she says, well, I don't want you riding motorcycles no more because you might hurt yourself and die, and then the kids ain't gonna have a father.
Right.
That is a non-negotiable to me. God forbid I'm the pastor of my motorcycle. I want my wife to say to the kids, your dad passed on doing what he loved. And that's how you should live life.
So then are you saying then if that is like, you don't negotiate that. So that means that you're going to walk away.
Absolutely. That is a non-negotiable. Why would you continue to build a house on a shaky foundation? Your beliefs are your foundating rules. That's your foundation. Anything you build on a shaky foundation can possibly fall apart. Even if it doesn't fall apart, it's going to have cracks in the structure. Cracks in the structure is going to cause issues all throughout your house. And eventually those issues can rather make the house implode, fall apart, etc.
Right.
So why do you negotiate your non-negotiables? This is where a lot of people start to me, go left, right? Whether or not I love you to death or not, I don't believe that I should sacrifice who I am for anybody. Now, I will sacrifice in my relationship. I will not sacrifice for my relationship.
What does that mean?
We out. We get stuck in the woods. We got one peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I know you hungry. There you go, babe. Handle that. That's your sandwich. That's sacrificing in the relationship.
Okay.
Going back to my motorcycle reference, I want you to stop riding.
Right.
Period. You got a family now, you need to think of us.
Right.
I will not sacrifice for a relationship. At that point, we're not compatible. But again, this goes back to those foundating principles. This is stuff that you should know in the beginning.
That's what I was going to say to you. Yeah.
Yes.
Because when you meet in the beginning, that's when you start knowing each other.
Yes.
And what you like and what you don't like and what you accept and what you won't accept.
Yes.
Well, then why do you think then, based on everything that you've been saying, women who stay in abusive relationships?
Well, it depends on what kind of abuse. Are we talking physical abuse? Are we talking mental abuse? Are we talking?
Well, all of it.
So
it could be mental, it could be...
For the most part, for the mental aspect.
Because the mental is bad. That to me, that seems to be like a little harsher, even though the physical, you get beat up or whatever, but with the mental, it stays with you.
Yeah, we have to remember two things, right? This does fall into the aspect of culture, right? In every culture, well, except our culture in the beginning, right?
Okay.
In every culture, women have been looked down upon, all right?
Yes.
Not our culture in antiquity, all right? But for the most part, women have been looked down upon, right?
Right.
So women have always kind of been like in the back burner, right? When it comes to our culture in the present day, we don't respect what slavery has taken us through, right? It has really demented our mind. Where we have become attached to abuse to the point where we think that if somebody loves me, they're going to yell at me, they're going to scream, they're going to grab me, they're going to throw me down. Now, this is what I ask people. Is that love?
No.
Why not? It could be. But is that the kind of love that you want? So I don't dictate to people what's love because, again, that goes back to this uniformity of thought. Right. If your definition of love is grabbing somebody, choking them, throwing them down, or a man that does that to you, he loves you, that's not the kind of love that I provide.
Right.
If someone's doing these things, you have to ask yourself, they may love me, but is this the kind of love that I want? And if you don't want that kind of love, then you should never, ever fall for that kind of love. So going back 360 to that question, I think that a lot of times also we have to remember the nature of women. Women are nurturers.
Yes.
Women want to take care. Women want to provide. Women want, he's down, he's hurt. Oh, women will say this, watch what I do with him. I know he ain't got all that now, but watch what I do with him. So men sometimes become these projects.
Yes, that's
and
true.
The more that you resist her, talk about it, don't call me no more, the more she feels rejected within self. So she wants to continually do her best to get this man's attention, to get this man to come back so she can do whatever, build him up, etc.
So then what you're saying is that a lot of women think that they could change the man.
Absolutely. A lot of women think that, and this goes back to this misunderstanding or understanding of love. Mm-hmm. If you love me enough, you would change. And I believe the opposite. If I love you enough, I don't have to partake in that. If I love me enough, I'm going to find out whether or not I'm compatible with you. That's it.
Right.
But it always goes back to self.
To self.
That's why it's important for people to spend time with themselves, right? And we have a culture now where, and I think it's by design, they have women feeling like they can be men. Go out, sleep with as many men as you want, party time, so you're doing all this stuff that men can do, coming down from this intellectual to this instinctual state, and now you're really having all these problems because the energy levels are different. So you're absorbing on a much more different emotional, spiritual level than men are. Right. And again, how do we come to that conclusion? Just look at nature. Always look at nature to see what is natural. What is natural? Look at nature. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times if you look at nature and you study nature, it's the answer to a lot of our challenges.
Wow. Well then, why do you think that when a woman wants a man, based on the fact that you're a man, mm-hmm. right, and you no longer want her, she has a feeling that I gotta get you back.
Right. Because she immediately starts to identify that he doesn't want me because something is wrong with me. He wants me, but right now in this moment he don't because something is wrong with me right now. So I'm going to fight to get him back to prove to myself, ain't nothing wrong with me. It's him. I know he loves me. I know he wants to be with me, but I'm going to make sure he does. And the moment that you do that to me, you let go of self. You let go of your self-love. Because if I'm with a woman and she doesn't want me, the best thing I can do is love her enough to only wish her the best.
To walk away.
That's it. I mean, I would never want to fight for someone's love. Some of the stuff and the phrases that we used to use to me never made sense to me. Mm-hmm. You got to fight for that woman that you want. Not if she don't want me. She done been with 3 other guys, and it's let me fight to get her back. I just don't believe in that. I think that if I love you enough, or if you love me enough, if we're not compatible or something's come to an end, then that's what it is. For me, I don't say ex, right? I was married before. Mm-hmm. I don't call her my ex-wife. I call her D1. We spoke about this, right?
Right.
And D1 stands for dynasty. Sometimes dynasties just end. Not that it's a bad thing, good thing, they just end. Right. So on that note, I would rather still keep a good connection because why would I be upset or angry? I can only want the best, love the best, and pray that we can still have some kind of connection. Right.
So then I remember when I was in the Nation of Islam back in the day, one of the things that was told to us is that we all have our own roles. Women have a role and men have a role.
Yes.
And you mentioned something about how men feel if they can't provide.
Yes.
And what was the other one you said?
So I said provide and protect.
Provide and protect.
Yes.
Now, what does that mean? Provide and protect.
Me and you are in a relationship, right? And this is where women's intuition comes in at the same time, right? I'm struggling right now, right? I got a job, I'm hustling. You see all of this, I'm paying the bills, boom, 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 boom. You want to go to Ruth Chris, right?
Oh, okay.
We can't afford Ruth Chris, right? I don't even feel right telling you that as a man that we can't afford Ruth Chris.
Oh, okay. Who's Ruth Chris though?
Ruth Chris is a steakhouse. This.
Oh, like a restaurant. Okay.
Ruth Chris Steakhouse, right? So you want to go to Ruth Chris? I can't afford Ruth Chris.
Okay.
Right. Most women, when they present that to their man, will say, "Well, I want to go to Ruth Chris," and the man will say something like, I ain't got time," versus saying, "Hey, I can't afford that right now." Because as a man, it just doesn't feel good to tell you what I can't do for you, although I want to do that for you.
Is that the ego?
So I call it the minjin.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, I was going to get to
I'm
that.
very,
That's the
I'm very
mention.
careful when I
Yes.
do stuff like egos. I don't believe in that Sigmund Freud. I don't believe in that train of thought. That train of thought to me this just goes back to that natural man thing. If you look at nature, is the exact same thing. So that goes back to the minjin, right? Which is a man's engine, right? The heart and soul of a man. So as a woman, how do you present that argument?